Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's start off talking about Corey Graves. And could Corey Graves be about to make an in-ring return inside of a WWE ring? Well, according to reports, Corey Graves has been medically cleared by WWE to make an in-ring return. Just nothing's happened yet when it comes to storylines, creative, etc. This is a really fascinating story, not just because also as well, I'm sure there's actually quite a few people that are WWE fans and are pro wrestling fans that have never seen actually Corey Graves compete inside of a ring. They might not even be aware of that. You know, some of the more modern pro wrestling fans, certainly WWE fans, will forget that he had a pretty extensive pro wrestling career in NXT on the independent scene, did some Ring of Honor shows as well. So this could be the beginning of a really interesting comeback story. So Corey Graves was reportedly cleared to return to in-ring action at some point in 2021. Now, a new report from Fightful Select notes that sources close to Graves claim he was actually cleared by WWE doctors at some point in the last 12 months or so. Now, WWE, they haven't confirmed the report, so it's largely based on these behind-the-scenes discussions and speculation. Now, Graves briefly won the WWE 24/7 Championship on the November 8, 2021 edition of Monday Night Raw, despite previously being on a strict internal no-contact list. It's this list of people that, when they appear on WWE television, they can't be touched because WWE doesn't want them to get hurt, doesn't want to be liable for them to get hurt, etc. It's now been confirmed that Graves was no longer on that list when he won the 24/7 Championship. Now, there have been several internal pitches made for Graves to return to the ring, but it remains to be seen if those were WWE creative or just Graves himself. It was noted that none of those pitches for Graves have made it through creative, hence why he's still doing commentary every single week and we haven't seen him physically active inside of the ring. One source close to the WWE creative team said they were not aware of Graves being cleared and confirmed that he is off the quote no contact list. Obviously, if you're not familiar with Corey Graves' pro wrestling background, Corey Graves signed a WWE developmental deal in August of 2011. He suffered two serious concussions between late 2013 and early 2014. He then announced his in-ring retirement in December 2014. Since then, Graves was a member of the NXT and main roster announced teams. Now, Graves spoke about wanting to come out of retirement during a podcast in April of 2020 after being inspired by the WWE 24/7 documentary on WWE Hall of Famer Edge. Now, he stepped into the ring to train for the first time since retiring with his brother, Sam Adonis, in May 2020. Graves once again fueled the rumor mill back in July of 2021 when he tweeted, quote, "I was put on this earth to do something. What I'm doing is not it." He then tweeted about wanting to wrestle again in late November 2021. So, there's a lot of speculation that obviously Graves could be appearing in the Royal Rumble match later this month. That certainly is a possibility. Corey Graves, it's an interesting one because, and I spoke about this before, with his desire to get cleared. For me, once Brian Danielson, was cleared to return by WWE, it was a matter of time. Now, obviously, concussions vary from person to person, but when you've seen people like Edge return, and his wasn't concussions, his was arguably, when it comes to necks, historically even less chances of getting cleared. He returned. When Bryan Danielson returned to in-ring action by WWE, for me, it was almost inevitable that Corey Graves would return. He had to retire because of two serious concussions. That was nearly a decade ago now. He would have recovered. We're learning more and more about concussions, about head injuries, about brain injuries, about just medical science in general. And I think he probably went for a few tests and thought, actually, I can come back. And Edge was a similar kind of situation. He was told, 2011, you're done, you're retired. And then really he just took that for granted, I suppose, and just went, well, that's final, I guess, and moved on. And then nearly a decade later, he goes, you know what, I feel okay. Maybe I should go to a doctor and get checked out. And I think it's probably the same with Corey Graves. He was told, your in-ring days are over, you're finished. He moves into commentating, announcing, he's doing that. And then he sees Edge come back, and he probably has the same discussion with himself. You know what? I feel fine. I feel fine. If I feel fine, maybe I should go to a doctor and see how fine I actually feel. And then, lo and behold, he's cleared. So I think that's the kind of situation there. The difference, I think, and this is always the way I've looked at it, is that it's one thing for Edge to be cleared. And if Edge is cleared, he comes back, he wrestles, because he has to. He's such a big star. Daniel Bryan's the same thing. Yes, he was doing the general manager stuff at the time and maybe an occasional commentary stuff, whatever. If he's cleared, he wrestles because that's where his money is. Corey Graves, and I don't mean this to put him down like he was a bad wrestler, because he wasn't. He was a name that in NXT at the time people thought, he could go on to do stuff in WWE. But is he a star the caliber of an Edge or a Bryan Danielson? The answer is no. Now, you could argue, well, he was never given the opportunity to become that kind of star, and maybe he can become that level of star, when if he steps back into the ring again. I don't know. But I think this is what WWE might be looking at, going, well, where's Corey Graves' best money? Where can we make the most money from Corey Graves? Is it him inside the ring, where I don't want to say he's an unproven entity, because that's not fair and that's not true, but in terms of value to the company, put it that way, in value to the company, value to the broadcast, is Corey Graves more valuable to WWE as an announcer or as a wrestler? Probably it's an announcer, and maybe it's a case of Corey Graves having to maybe force the issue, or just saying, look, I don't know when his next contract comes up or something. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of this. I think WWE would want Corey Graves to remain as an announcer because he's a good announcer. He's good at what he does. And Lord knows they've struggled when it's come to announcing positions over the last few years. WWE are finding the right fit. Do we need to say Adnan Virk? So I think that would be the ongoing dilemma when it comes to WWE. But also, you have to factor in happiness. If Corey Graves isn't happy being an announcer and he wants to do what he thinks he was put on this planet to do, and that's wrestle, then you should let him wrestle as well. So it is a difficult one. I wouldn't be shocked. If he is in the Rumble. But does that lead to a full-time return to in-ring action? I don't know. It's a fascinating story. And for him, I would love to see him get his moment inside of a WWE ring on the main roster, because he deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. And to have your career ripped away from you at such a young age sucks. So I keep an eye out for it. I would say. But it's a fascinating story nevertheless. Let's talk about an AEW star, that being Wardlow, because WWE reportedly has their eyes on the All Elite Wrestling star currently aligned with MJF. Now, AEW star Wardlow reportedly has several admirers within WWE. It was noted yesterday by the Twitter account WrestleVotes that WWE will likely have a major interest in luring Wardlow away from AEW when his contract is due. Now, this is because there are several people within WWE who love his potential. Now, Wardlow signed with AEW in August 2019 after a few years on the independent scene. He has been the muscle for the Pinnacle and MJF since then. Now, Wardlow had his biggest singles match of his career during last night's AEW Dynamite episode, where he was defeated, barely, by CM Punk. We're going to talk about that in today's AEW news video. Now, there's no word yet on when Wardlow's contract will expire. I'm sure that will come out over the course of the next few days. Wardlow did an interview last year, and I think it's worth pointing out, when he talked about his future with AEW. He said, I think we've got a bigger year coming in 22. 21 saw Wardlow in high-profile, high-pressure matchups. You don't see me every week, but when you do see me, it's usually something special. Now, as we end the year, you will see me being you'll be seeing me a little more. I think we're going to continue seeing more of me. That's why I say 2022. I think we have a lot more to come. He also mentioned, quotes, MJF and I strictly have a business relationship. That's all it's ever been, and that's all it will ever be. However, that contract isn't forever. The way he treats people, we will see the way the future holds up with that. So I would be surprised. Of course, there are certain names on the AEW roster that WWE loves. Wardlow's a great example. Powerhouse Hobbs is another example. The big guys, young, muscle, because that's what WWE is looking for right now. So obviously, they would have huge interest in signing Wardlow whenever his contract comes up. And AEW knows that. AEW knows what they've got. That's why they had him in the ring with CM Punk last night. That's why they've been laying the foundations for this Wardlow MJF story for such a long time. For me, I've always seen it as a Triple H Batista kind of situation. Eventually, Wardlow will set himself free of MJF, and it'll be a massive moment. It'll be a huge moment. I just can't see a situation where Wardlow would go to WWE, because I think AEW will make him a great offer to stay. I think, obviously, he likes it there. I don't think he's unhappy. The only thing that I think could change that is if WWE basically promises the world to Wardlow, and he's not happy with what he's doing in AEW. If Wardlow, when his contract comes up, isn't really ascending and maybe challenging for main event spots or having big time matches, and WWE makes him a good offer that doesn't include going to NXT and has him featured on television in a big way for WWE, he'd be interested, I think. But I just don't see that situation really happening. So, of course, they're interested. And like I mentioned, I'm sure there are several names on the AEW roster that WWE are interested in. And obviously, we're going to get to this point eventually, certainly probably in the next 12 months or so, where you're going to probably have these first names that leave AEW and maybe go to WWE. So far, it's been one-way traffic, but that's because AEW's just started and people in AEW have been on 3-year deals, so they're not really going anywhere. And obviously, WWE contracts have been expiring and people have been released by the company. Obviously, over the next few years, I think we might see a couple of AEW names go to WWE, and the WWE stands will revel when they see that, and the AEW stands will say, we didn't want you anyway, and that toxicity will continue. Nevertheless, I just don't know if I see it. I don't know if I see it, but I certainly see the interest being there because he ticks every single box for WWE, no doubt about it. Now, speaking of WWE, of course, this lawsuit with MLW has been a big story. We spoke about it yesterday, and there's been some more details about it. There's quite a lot of details that have come out about it. I'm not going to go into all of the court documents that have been filed because there's just there's just so many. There's so many parts of it. It involves poaching talent, Tubi interference. I saw some people say it's not Tubi, it's Tubi. The problem is over here in the UK, we don't say tube, we say tube. So when I see that, I say Tubi. But I've been told it's Tubi, so apologies. It talks about Fight TV and Vice as well, and obviously those streaming platforms for MLW that were reportedly pulled because of WWE. So Susan Levison has been revealed as the former WWE executive who MLW listed in their federal antitrust lawsuit against WWE. Now, as I mentioned, MLW filed an antitrust lawsuit against WWE in federal court on Tuesday, detailing WWE's, quote, alleged ongoing attempts to undermine competition in and monopolize the professional wrestling market by interfering with MLW's contracts and business prospects. Now, in an update, the full lawsuit filing is now available online. And it shows that Levison is the, quote, then WWE executive that MLW claims warned Vice TV in early 2021 that WWE chairman and CEO Vince McMahon would be pissed at Vice for airing MLW programming and that Vice should stop working with MLW. It was alleged in the lawsuit how a Vice TV executive responded that WWE's conduct was illegal and an antitrust violation, with Levison allegedly responded that she could, quote, not control Vince McMahon. Now, Levison was let go from WWE back in May 2021 as part of the major corporate shakeup that saw WWE part ways with dozens of employees. It was noted then that Levison was an influential person before she was released. She had been with WWE since March of 2019. She was working as a senior vice president and head of WWE Studios. Levison is credited with producing several projects, including the WWE biography documentaries on A&E and the Fight Like a Girl miniseries. Now, obviously, again, this full lawsuit is viewed online and we really don't have time to go into all of it, but it's certainly an interesting look. As I mentioned before when I spoke about it yesterday, my thoughts are very much the same. It's just a case of good for MLW. I'm sure there is what they're saying is probably legitimate because WWE has history for doing it. This isn't the first time. They did it with WCW, they did it with TNA, they've done it with AEW. That's what they do. They know they're the biggest pro wrestling company in the world. They throw their weight around. They threaten broadcasters or streaming platforms or whatever to ensure that their competition doesn't rise up. Just look at all they did in the Wednesday Night Wars when AEW wasn't even an entity at the time. So, of course, they do that. And they've been doing that in the 80s and then the 90s. That's what they do. Whether or not MLW will win, I doubt it. Whether or not the lawsuit will go anywhere, I don't even know about that. I wouldn't be surprised if a judge dismissed it. Not just because there's nothing in the lawsuit, there is, but that's how WWE lawsuits work. They have a great record when it comes to lawsuits because they have a lot of lawyers and a lot of money, and that's how the legal system works. So we'll see. But it's certainly an interesting read if you do have the time to read it. Finally, there's an update when it comes to Nikki Bella. Of course, she's making her return at the Women's Royal Rumble match later on this month, and she's not viewing her in-ring comeback at the Royal Rumble as a one-time thing. Now, on this week's The Bellas podcast, Nikki hinted at wrestling more matches for the company after the January event. She said, quote, in the world of any professional sport, people always make comebacks, but what's beautiful about WWE is that we can make comebacks as many times as we want as long as our bodies let us and doctors let us as well. Nikki said, quote, I've officially got cleared. Now, she said about the whole announcement thing, she said, I was shocked that they announced it because usually these are surprises, but I understand marketing-wise. Brie agreed, said, well, business-wise, it makes sense because now they'll get the whole Bella army there. Nikki said, quote, selfishly, that's why I was happy about it because no one would have ever expected you and I to be in the Rumble, so it makes me very happy now that the Bella army knows so they can go. Brie also said that she thinks more surprises will come at the event, and obviously there will be. We spoke about that yesterday. Now, Nikki Bella, of course, wrestled her final singles match against Ronda Rousey at the Evolution pay-per-view in October of 2018. Then she had a neck injury. She also had a cyst on her brain that effectively retired her, but her neurosurgeon made comments on social media after clearing her to return to the ring. So do I think Nikki Bella will have more matches? Like she said, if she's cleared and if her body lets her, yes, absolutely she will. I think she'll probably want to have a WrestleMania match, whether that will be this year or next year, I don't know. You have to remember as well that Nikki's got a small child now, and that does change things as well because they want their children to see them compete inside of the ring as well. And there's money involved, but I think it's more than that. The Bellas have more than enough money. So it's a fascinating story. I wouldn't be surprised if, like they said, this is the beginning of, I don't want to say a full-time return, but they spoke about going back to last year in the summer, that the Bella Twins wanted to come back because they wanted to win the women's tag team titles. Now, it's a shame that the women's tag team titles mean absolutely nothing, like nothing right now, but maybe them coming back will build to, a tag team match at WrestleMania for the women's tag titles, then they'll win, and then they'll hold them to, say, SummerSlam and drop them, or something like that. There's lots of different things they could do, and as Nikki said, given that their bodies are holding up and they're now cleared, I think they'll do it. I think they'll absolutely do it. And WWE will want to. People underestimate, and I'm not the biggest Bella Twins fan, but I respect their appeal and their draw because I'm telling you, go and just check out the YouTube numbers alone. Any video on YouTube from that 2018 run or even whenever it's been posted that has the Bella Twins in on Raw or whatever, draws, the views are astounding. Some of the views they were doing on those, like Ronda Rousey, the full match, or the segments they were doing on Raw, they were getting like 20 million views on YouTube. It's insane. So absolutely, WWE will want Nikki Bella to continue, and I think she will. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these WWE news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community and drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, get the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.